Hello, and welcome to the Capital Gains Show. My name is Aaron. In this show, I defend capitalism and criticize socialism. Today, I want to tell you a little bit about inequality, specifically why inequality is bullshit. It doesn't matter. What matters is poverty. It doesn't matter in terms of the prosperity of humanity if inequality is big or small, really. What matters in terms of human prosperity is whether poverty is big or small. The smaller amount of poverty we have, the better off everyone is. Inequality doesn't really have very much at all to do with how well off everyone is. And I'm going to explain why. First, let me give you a scenario. You've got two societies. Each society has 100 people in it. They're neighbors, you know. The first society has 99 poor people and one rich person. The other society has 99 equally rich people and one equally poor person. So the first society, everyone's poor except for one person. In the second society, everyone's rich except for one person. The inequality is the same for each society, right? Which one has the worse inequality? Well, as long as the poor and the rich are equally distant, and in this scenario they are, well, the inequality is the same between those two societies. Of course, the society with 99 poor people is the one that is definitely worse off and less prosperous and less happy than the society that has 99 rich people. Let me give you another example. Here's a meme that I'm quite fond of, and it explains in quantifiable terms here why inequality doesn't matter and poverty does. Here we go. Person A makes 25K, person B makes 50K, income gap is 25K. Then the economy grows. Later on, person A makes 50K, person B makes 100K, so both of their salaries doubled. Now the income gap is 50K. So the income gap doubled, so inequality doubled, but the poverty went down. Both people, person A and person B, in this example, are materially better off, despite the fact that the inequality got worse. Now, I've noticed something lately is that there's a reason that socialists have been complaining about inequality, and it's because they can't really complain about poverty anymore, because free markets and private property rights over time are very clearly, indisputably reducing poverty. So the socialists, all they can point to in terms of something that gets worse that they can quantify is income inequality. So they're appealing to greed and jealousy and envy instead of appealing to the actual human condition or the amount of prosperity in society as a whole. Let me show you a little bit of how we know that poverty is going down. Now, first off, I'm going to start by talking about America. It is the country that I live in, and so I'll start there, but then I'll go to global numbers as well. Here we go. Here's a chart showing Americans' incomes, okay? You can see at the left column is 1967, and then way over on the right column is 2016. So the numbers there with the red arrows show decreases in the percentage of people in those classes, and then the green arrows show increases in the ratio of people in those classes. Now look, poor, lower middle class, and middle class all reduced as a percentage of the population between 1967 and 2016. Well, what increased? Upper middle class and rich people. Those are the categories that swelled in size as a percentage of the population. So really what matters here is whether or not poverty is going up or down. And fortunately for us, poverty is going down, even if inequality is getting worse. Even if Bezos gets richer than everyone else, inequality isn't contributing to a deteriorating material condition for people as a whole. In fact, as the inequality goes up, the prosperity of everyone as a whole also goes up. Let me show you something cool in graph form. This one really illustrates well, I think, what I'm talking about. This, again, we're talking about America. The left chart shows the middle class shrinking over time. It shrank from 53% of the population in 1967 down to 42% of the population in 2016. Gee, that looks bad at first until you look at the graph on the right that shows the dark blue category, which is the wealthy class. They're increasing in size as a percentage of the population. Meanwhile, both the middle class and lower classes are shrinking as a percentage of the population. So we have more rich people and less poor people. That right there is absolutely incontrovertibly an improvement in the material conditions of the people. It doesn't matter that inequality went up or down. What matters here is that there's less poor people. Now, let's get past America. After all, America only represents 5% of the world's population. What about the globe itself as a whole? Well, here we go. In 2018, the World Bank reported that the global poverty rate dropped to a record low 10%. Never in the history of humanity has poverty been lower in a global sense. I'll admit the coronavirus pandemic and shutdown may have reversed that trend, at least in the short term. But as recently as 2018, global poverty has never been lower, thanks to free markets, global trade, private property rights. Next, I'm going to show you something a little more concrete. Okay, we can talk about poverty, but let's talk about how the material conditions of the planet have improved so greatly. These are 6 graphs that show the world as 100 people over the last 2 centuries. Now look at the left. You can see extreme poverty went down. Between the 1800s and 2016, it went from most people living in poverty to most people not living in poverty. You see basic education went up. Instead of barely anyone having a basic education 200 years ago, now most people have a basic education. Look at literacy on the bottom left. Most people couldn't read in the 1800s. Now most people can read. Now, I don't care too much about democracy, but for those that do, look at the chart on the top right. You can see that democracy is increasing in a prevalence, across all the different countries. Over time, democracy has gone up. Look at vaccination rates. There was no vaccination rates until like the 1960s, and all of a sudden, boom, it shot up. Now most people are vaccinated. And look at the bottom right graph. Child mortality used to be like 30 or 40%. Now it's down to, less than 10%. So what you're seeing here is a massive reduction in poverty and a massive increase in the well-being of the global human population as a whole in the last 200 years. You know what else has increased in 200 years? Capitalism, free markets, private property rights, free trade, individual autonomy. Those things have all gone up, and they have, of course, resulted in a reduction in poverty. So it really doesn't matter how unequal society is. Would you rather be unequally rich, or would you rather have everyone be equally poor? In fact, the places with the lowest inequality tend to be the places with the lowest amount of prosperity, with the highest amount of poverty. You can't have inequality if nobody's rich, right? But but to go back to my original example, if 99 people are rich and 1 person is poor, even though inequality might be really high, you've got reduction in poverty. So inequality doesn't matter. Poverty does. And socialism is not going to cure poverty. Socialism is going to cure inequality, which means it's going to make everyone poorer. The socialists would rather see the net amount of global prosperity go down, just so long as it means less rich people and less inequality. It's a severe crab in a pot syndrome. They don't want anyone to better themselves. They don't want anyone to differentiate themselves from the rest, so they try and pull everyone down. Meanwhile, the capitalists say, hey, do what you want, make your life better for yourself, and people take that to heart in different ways and to, different lengths. So some people make themselves really rich, some people make themselves a little bit better off, so you're seeing more inequality, but overall, the human condition is being made better by these free markets and private property rights, despite the increase in inequality that we see. So In closing, if you want to make humanity more prosperous and experience less poverty as a whole, what you need is capitalism. You need free markets and private property rights. You don't need a planned economy. You don't need monopolization. You don't need to make everything public property. You don't need to mandate worker ownership. You don't need to eat the rich. All of those things are going to reduce the amount of prosperity. They're going to reduce inequality, but they're going to increase poverty. You're going to eat the rich. No one's rich anymore. Now everyone's poor again. It's not the answer. Free markets and private property rights are the answer. Thanks for watching.